And by the way, guys, we are your hosts. I'm Kajal.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Talwynne.
And we're going to stick that on there because we forgot to introduce ourselves before. So, enjoy the show. What am I saying? Hello and welcome. Okay, hello and welcome to the podcast, Throw It in the Cauldron, where we are your three crazy bitches, witches. And this is basically the group chat where we talk about the expectation versus the reality of witchy shit. What else do we talk about? We talk about what it's like being late bloomers in this whole realm of witchcraft, occult, and I guess spirituality too. What else? What else do we talk about in the group chat? The group chat goes off on one though. The group chat is just like wisdom, bullshit, whatever you can put in it, it's in there.
And mundane stuff.
And the mundane stuff, like how the mundane ties in with the spiritual, like just because you cycled over the ice the first time doesn't mean you'll be able to do it the second time, because I slipped and fell, and it's the third time. It's the third time I fell off my bicycle, and this time I surrendered. I surrendered, and God bless helmets, because I hit my head. I was only going about 10 miles an hour, and I was just like, oh, I'm going down, right, there we go. And like, you know, I as soon as I got up and started, I was like, I'm going to walk the rest of the way to the park. I called up Zach and I was like, I'm so proud of myself. I just surrendered and I'm okay. I'm really happy. I'm so proud of myself.
Is that how you started the call?
I was like, by the way, I fell off my bike, but I'm okay. And also, I'm really proud of myself. He's like, oh my God. I was like, no, it's good. It's like what I need to do in life. I just need to surrender.
Falling off the bike has been life-changing. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It was life-changing. I can't tell you what's been coming up for me within the last 48 hours. 48 hours? Yeah, 48 hours. I feel like it's been life-changing. So, you know, I mean, sometimes third is a charm.
Absolutely. Third time's this charm, for sure. Oh my God.
And I hope you guys liked my intro, because, you know, it's awkward sometimes. Just like witchcraft. When you're starting out. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta riff.
Yeah. Oh, so today, origin story, because who the f*** are we? Who are we to be talking about witchcraft on the internet?
I love me some good villain Orangin story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love our origin story. Origin?
I said the same, right? Oh my gosh. We just at the start, I already cannot talk. My gosh.
You know what? It's because we hit record. That's always the case. Record just like
our
makes
origin story.
Our orange
story. And I'm going to be very transparent. I've got my notes here so that I don't get lost. And I don't have a printer, so I'm reading off my laptop. I'm recording on my boyfriend's laptop.
There you go.
Yeah, so basically it all happened because of me.
So much.
Very modest.
This only happened because of me. No, I joke. I mean, I just really wanted, you know what? We were all in the same community, and because we're international, I'm in the UK, you guys are in the US, and the community was on the US side of the world, which meant that the hours that like the socials were happening just wouldn't always align for me, and at the time in that community space, I had been part of the program, which in, I can't remember what week it was, whatever week it was, we did the Tarot 101, basically. And
it was an online community too, just in case people are
online
lost.
Community, because obviously being in the UK and in the US can't really like meet in the middle even. So we did that. There was the Tarot 101, and I did, you know what? I didn't even think I'd be that into tarot, but I got a deck for this program, and then I learned about the cards, and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. I want to do this, but I couldn't make those live socials, so I put out a message in the one of the threads, you know, does anyone want to like meet up with me outside of the social lives to like do some tarot, because I really want to practice with other people. So I just wanted to practice more. And then
I saw it. I mean, we all saw it, I guess. You would be here at the end of the day. But it was really, I don't want to really say miracle, but it was really like lucky for me that I really saw the thread, because at that time the community was kind of blowing up to such proportions that was feeling too much for me personally at this point. So it started fairly small, and then certain programs were introduced to that community, and which the teacher was kind of adding on to that for that specific year that we then met. And I already kind of I was not able to really follow up on all of the threads, and it just started to overwhelm me so much that I really did not check regularly even within this community. It's happened on Discord, by the way. So that was kind of all of the communication was on Discord at the time. And so I saw like one day when I was just looking into the threads just to kind of see if I'm missing out on anything or if there's any updates to anything that I need to know. And then I saw Kajal's thread of like just asking, you didn't even tag anybody. It was just a standalone, thread in the general chat that would have been easily... Yeah, it would have just like easily drowning within like all of the other contributions from other people, because it was hundreds of people in there now.
Well, I was just like, whoever sees this was meant to see this. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there, and people will get back to me if they're interested.
That was honestly awesome. Good on you, because I saw that, I was like, yeah, why the fuck not? Because I suck at tarot. I suck at it so bad. I realized how little I really understand tarot until I really tried to read it, and I was like, I need to practice that with someone, because I cannot really do this for myself. I just don't get it really. Like, I'm dense sometimes. And so I saw your chat. I saw your question. I was like, fuck yeah, why not? And I knew you were in the UK, and I was like, whatever, we're gonna make it work somehow with the time difference. And then I replied to you, and then don't remember exactly how Melissa got into the mix. Melissa?
I think I put a shout out to all the people that were at the different time zone, just like, hey, who all wants to come? And so then there was some interest, but then the three of us were the only ones that ever showed up. And I remember too, before that, there was a few people that I was trying to do one-on-one stuff with, because it's just, smaller group. It's like less pressure. And none of those ever worked out either, which I think is interesting. So the only time it ever worked out was the three of us.
That's so funny, because I remember Melissa, you put the group chat together, and there must have been about 5 of us, because there were, I think, one other person who was in the UK and another person who was somewhere else in Europe, but they never showed up, and it was always us 3.
Yeah. We start, or like Melissa, I think you started the group chat just like inviting all of us in, 5 people originally, and then it was just us 3 every time. And at some point we were like, well, I guess we're just going to be the 3 of us, because we were trying to invite more people and who were interested in that. But it just never happened that way. And I find that interesting that you were also trying to have like one-on-ones with other people. It just didn't pan out. So it's not like we were not trying before.
something about the cohesion of this little group.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the rest is history.
The rest, I literally wrote that in my notes, like the rest is history. Like we just, what did I write here? Oh, actually, let me see. Yeah, the rest is history. Well, yeah, I mean that kind of covers the main bulk of it, because we ended up meeting weekly after that. It was like was it Friday? I think we started off on Fridays and then ended up moving on to Saturdays. Not that it really matters,
Yeah,
but
Saturdays were just easier
yeah.
for me personally because I still had to work. And that was, oh gosh, what was the time frame? Was it March 2024?
It was March because Melissa and I were in the March cohort, and Talwynne, you were in what, February.
February, like the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
The
you were
first
there.
iteration.
You were there a month before us, and then we rolled up. Yeah, that was. I don't know. Like, we met up every single week for like basically a year, almost a year, because I know that obviously, because that was March 2024, and then by time 25 March 2025, like I know you were in the process of like uprooting, but until then it was,
Oh my God.
yeah, that's, we finally made it. Like, we're not even at 2 years yet. We still have like 3 more months before it's been 2 more months before it's been 2 years. So we've been meeting up for nearly 2 years now. Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay. That blows my mind because so much so much and nothing happened in this
So
time
much has
frame.
happened.
I like
Wild.
had started teaching TEFL, and lost my job in TEFL and went back to work in hospital. Like, it was just a whole process, and because we've just entered, like, as we are recording now, we've just entered 2026. We've had a wild ride together, and it all started because of tarot. That is
Yep.
the beginning of the origin
Because
story.
you were trying to practice tarot.
It started off as tarot, and then it just became us meeting up every week to just catch up on like witchy practice stuff. And like, there was no
That's what
tarot.
it was, though. Yeah, it was like very much tarot based for like, I don't know, 2 months maybe. And it was like, yeah, we were practicing. And then we're just like, and now we're just, we're not, yeah, we're still practicing tarot, but it's like more about like our journey as we're like changing and navigating
Yeah.
and doing life. And
I honestly
Well, it's also because
think...
we're all fairly in the beginning. Sorry.
No, Talwynne, please, Talwynne.
Oh, because maybe that ties like really well into like our individual stories a little bit of like how we even got to that community in the first place. Because at that time, I mean, we're still, but like even especially at that time, I feel like we were not having really any practice under our belts when we started meeting up. It was very, very new, definitely new for me. Because when we met up in March 2024, I maybe started not really having a regular practice. I was just dabbing here and there a little bit. It was just all very loose, not a structure or anything, not even that regular at all. It was just like loose videos and some books that I just found and then started doing some stuff with it and then abandoned it again and then trying to pick it up again. So it was just like all very loose, not very structured. And that was maybe what? A few months that I really started picking it up as a practice, or wanted to really pick up as a practice more seriously, at least.
What do you mean?
In 2023.
After... Oh, in 2023. Okay.
Yeah, because I joined that community when it was starting out. It was the second go around though back then. Even at that point, it was the second go around for him, but fairly early on still in the second iteration of his school. So I joined in, I think, June or July 2023. And that's where the entire community still was like very new-ish, very small, very familiar, and like a group that kind of met up almost weekly, at least monthly, catching up, having these courses, classes going through, and it was all fairly, again, fairly loose. There was just classes here and there that were teaching certain things around witchcraft and the occult. So this is where I kind of started to take that a little bit more seriously and try to apply things that I saw online. And so for me personally, still very new to that. So it was really cool to just kind of talk about these things in a smaller group setting then.
Yeah.
Yeah, my gosh. Summer 2023 kind of kickstarted it for me, for sure.
Well, it's funny because when we started meeting up and also talking about our own kind of backstories and stuff, it was really interesting how our backstories lined up to a certain extent, because for me, it all really came into my awareness fully in 2023, I think in March. I'd already been on I'd already been on a journey already of being interested in spirituality, but it was in the March of 2023 where I met up with a friend, and she started talking about how she had been looking into witchcraft, and I was like, witchcraft? Wait, like this is really a thing? And she's like, yeah, like people like do witchcraft. We started talking about it. I went home, right, after that. And I started Googling and looking up on YouTube. And I was like, oh shit, I want to be a witch. I want to be a witch. Whatever I do, I've got to be a witch in this lifetime. So I was like, okay. Yeah, and then it just kind of unraveled from there, from 2023. Yeah, it was 2023. I'm now questioning my backstory, but yeah, because then
It sounds about right, though.
I then started like buying books and reading up and watching videos, and I didn't actually start practicing until 2024, really, because it was all like, I don't really know what to do with all this information.
Yeah, because Melissa, was it lining up for you as well during that time frame? Does it sound
That's
about
why I'm
right?
just like laughing. It's like May 2023, but
This was just wild.
but it's interesting because I would say my journey started maybe like maybe a year before that, but not into witchcraft. So I had like a cosmic meltdown at work, and I was like, I'm not handling stress very well anymore. I need some more tools in my toolbox, and so I got into meditation. And so I found Sam Harris, and he has a app called Waking Up, and I did a year subscription, and so I did like a meditation practice pretty regularly for a year, and that was like huge in changing my perspective, right? Like my mind was a maniac following me from room to room, yelling at me until I could separate that, I'm not my emotions and I'm not the idle, process that my brain is just talking all the time. And so being able to separate that. But at some point, um, I plateaued in that and I wanted a little more. And I had exposure to a lot of like stoicism and that that app was great. So it gave me a lot of exposure to those types of practices. But then one day I was like, I want to celebrate more things in my life, and I don't connect with traditional holidays. So I'm like looking up what the next holiday is, which is Beltane. And so you start Googling Beltane, and that's just like a steep drop right into like paganism. And so that was like my Googling. But the same thing, it was Googling, it was watching YouTube videos, it was a lot of podcasts for me. Like I had some of the standard YouTubers that you get exposure to, but I was also had a lot of podcasts. But yeah, beginner books, and did that for about a year before I was like, okay, I need something more structured. I need a community. I want
Ooh,
all of that.
dang.
Hmm
And it's funny because when
That's cool.
when I was like getting interested into the like the community space, it wasn't even for community first. I was so keen and a little bit desperate to learn and to also have a bit of guidance, because I had all these books, most of which I hadn't read because I was like, I can't take in any more information and feel lost with it. Um, and, you know, it definitely helped to get something a little bit more structured and felt
Mm-hmm.
a bit more guided, and then be like, okay, now I have this information and these tools, and now I go practice on my own. Um, but I feel like so with that, then I enter a community, and then I realize how important community is, uh, which beforehand, for quite some time, I struggled with like the concept and the sense of what community is, what that means for me, and whether I even want to be part of community. I was like, I just want to have my friends. I don't want to be part of community. I didn't really understand. I went through a steep learning process, but what? Let me just check my notes, because also this group right here, I think, for me anyway, has played a fundamental role in my own practice. And I feel like I wouldn't really be, obviously I wouldn't be the same as I am about you guys, you know. Without being too soppy. But there was that aspect of our group was meeting up weekly, which gave a sense of structure, which meant that there was a space where I felt, at least I can only assume you both, seeing as we're still here now, felt safe enough, comfortable enough to just share the way we shared with each other. And we have completely different practices. Our practices are so completely different. So
Different
completely
backgrounds,
different.
different
Wildly.
practices, completely different
Wildly
people,
different.
different parts of the world.
Completely different. And there was a sense of structure with a sense of community that was close-knit and tight and not overwhelming, where we started off sharing the mutual practice of tarot, and then just kind of got really, you know, expansive and philosophical, and sharing our own experiences in our own practice, sharing our struggles in our practice and challenges, and then getting external and trusted insight into our practices from each other, which gives you and gave us a varying perspectives that we wouldn't have considered ourselves. I mean, it has been part of my lifeline, because I feel like if I didn't have this space, I wouldn't have felt as inspired to continue practicing. Because I remember in the beginning, this was my favorite thing to do every week. I was just like, oh my god, I'm speaking with the girls. I'm like speaking with the girls on Saturday. I'm speaking with the girls on Friday. Like, I mean, Zach was gigging because he gigs every Friday, Saturday. So like, you know, and I would go sometimes, but I was like, and every time I went to the gigs and I was missing out on the call, I'd be like, guys, I'm missing out. And you're like, go have fun. I'm like, but I want to be with you guys. And like, I'd call you when I'm like getting ready for the gig, or like just when, like, before I get there, I'm like, hi, I just want to say hello, because I get FOMO. But yeah, it's just been really life affirming at the same time, because I don't know. I mean, I do know.
But we had talked
We're not the
about too how
Kardashians.
most of, yeah, yeah, that
We're
most of
lifting each other
our
up.
friendships, uh, like once again, speaking for myself,
Yeah.
most of my friendships are through work or other, you know, things you do because you're there, and so you make these associations. And this is the only friend group I've ever had around a common interest. And so the conversations are just very different, and the level of depth is very different than other friends I have.
That's so true, though. Same here, because like obviously we have lives and friends outside of this group and the community. But it's different because like I know for a fact I cannot, with the exception of one person, I just cannot have that type of conversation with anybody else outside of this community because most of them don't even know what I'm doing. I also don't really feel the need to tell them because ultimately it's really none of their business. But it's just, I cannot really start the conversation with them because it's like, yo, I know like I know you from so long ago. Like my best friend, I know her since I'm 7. So it's like we're friends since we're like 6-7 years old. She's practically like my surrogate sister. It's just like growing up with her, it's like she's my sister, but like this is just something I cannot really. It would be so odd to tell her that because like she might be cool with it, but I just don't know. And then other friends that I like know from later and during university or other phases of my life don't know anything about that. And then telling them all of a sudden of like, what are you doing? What is this? And then they might be cool with that, but that's where it just ends there because I know I will not have those deep conversations with them because they're just not part of this community. They're probably not really interested in this side or that type of spirituality. So that's totally cool with me. But I do realize over the years now that I really crave that type of connection and conversations now with people that are on that path that I just didn't have and could not really seek out locally, if I'm being honest. It's really hard for me personally. So yeah, online it was, and that school, that community that we were part of, like all 3 of us, really provided that for me. Which, honestly, same Kajal though, because I went into that space of like not really seeking out community. That was not even in my mind at all.
Yeah, me neither.
It was very individualistic actually when I came into the space, and then now, honestly, yeah, like now the community is so important to me because it's really. It does give that type of, not structure, but some form of like feedback of, hey, I have a question on certain things, or I really need to pick your brain on the topic, or how do you understand that? Even though we come from different backgrounds and have different practices, there's just something about another person's perspective. Understanding a little bit more about that is really interesting and gives me personally like great insight and inspiration to do something from a certain angle I have not looked at it before.
And that was essentially how the podcast was born. because Talwynne asked the question about something, or you put something in the group chat about, it was like half a question, half like, what the fuck are all these people doing? And then Melissa and I just, because originally I didn't think that I had anything to really share, and next thing you know, the group chat just blew up. It just like went off the charts, and we were like, should we start a podcast?
Oh my gosh. So God, we have to like go back to so many other like origin stories.
Oh my God, I know.
Behind that, because the way how I got into witchcraft. So, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I want to start there. Like I'm on and off the occult like forever, like since I was a teenager, but I never practiced it. I was just reading a lot of esotericism, some Eastern esotericism stuff, like philosophy, Eastern traditions. It does help that my parents were heavily involved in Eastern esotericism at that point. I'm not going into that depth. We would sit here like for 3 more days, I guess, if I would like untangle that entire story. But just like as a background, like I grew up in a household that was heavily involved in Eastern esotericism, like not to the degree where everything's out in the open, but I just know my mom had journals. Like I read her journals in that on these topics of Eastern philosophies and traditions and esotericism. She was involved in like in-person communities back then too. So, and sometimes just took my brother and myself like to certain retreats when we were kids. So that's like a familiar setting, just as like a background of like, this is not very far-fetched, honestly, because I was already in touch with that side of spirituality, I guess. So not really unknown, but I don't know, like something about the occult, especially as a teenager, was really enticing for me. I read about a lot of stuff, never practiced it because it started with meditation. I was like, this is boring. My gosh, like sitting down for 30 minutes and then you're not supposed to like, I couldn't do that. So I have this weird on and off thing with the occult and witchcraft and just spirituality in general. And so just again, on and off kind of thing. Then in the 2010s, it kind of crept up again, just more like in the new age direction. So my mom was also very new age, more in the new age section, I would say. So then I kind of came like into the 2010s of like, what is my purpose in life? I mean, I constantly had these questions, but like the 2010s was where I was confronted with that huge decision of like, am I staying in Germany or am I going to follow a guy that I barely know to the States? That was a huge decision to make because I mean, we were dating, we were hanging out. There was a lot of challenges like on top of all of that I'm not going to get into, but there was really the question that I was confronted with at some point of like, man, this is getting serious, and now I have to now really understand the gravity of the decision of, am I staying in Germany with everything that's familiar with like to me, where I grew up, where I have everything going on in my life, or uproot myself completely and move to a totally different continent I've never been like really to before, and start a life with someone that I don't really know that much now looking back on it. I didn't really know a ton about him other than we were dating for over a year or 1.5 years for sure. But I mean, that was such a huge decision to make. And so I kind of came back to like channels about New Age and spirituality, and how I make that decision, and like things like trust your intuition and ask the universe and you will receive. I mean, that's kind of how it started again, to the point where at some point I was like, this is just too vague for me. Like all of these things were very great. I would say it was my gateway back into the occult ultimately in 2023. But that's how I kind of came back to it again. And then 2023, after 3 years of pandemic, I think something happened with all of us during the pandemic for sure.
Oh, yeah.
On a global and individual level. Mm-hmm. That after after it kind of settled more or less for us again, we got more stable in the 2023. I was really like, shit, is that it? Like, I hit milestones that I needed to hit or wanted to hit back then, and then I achieved that and felt nothing. Like it didn't fulfill me. Even though I really had everything that I wanted and had asked for, but there was just something deeply missing that I felt I needed to find somehow, and I just didn't know where to look for, and New Age was just not the way to go anymore for me personally. And so going into witchcraft was really interesting because it started out in such a weird way, because I have a personal relationship with the number 3. It's just always been the case. And so I started to notice that people around me talked about witches all of a sudden, and I don't know where this came from. So the first time was when friends of ours we were hanging out at their place. I think we watched a game, and then all of a sudden they're like talking about the story how they went into a tea shop or something, and then got a tea thing, and then tried something that they were offering, and they were apparently like a real witch, and then they really felt super trippy after that tea, and like weird things started to happen. Like, what is happening right now? So we talked about witches. Then I heard the mention of witches like 2 more times, which I completely forgot what the situation around that was. But like I heard about these stories like of witches 3 times around me, like in the span of a few weeks, and I started to notice that because again, new age, like I'll look for the signs.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that I was like, what is going on? Because like I just hear this now all of a sudden, when before that, years and years and years before, never had any mention of anything like that, even remotely. And so that's where I really started to listen in a sense, and then looked up witches and witchcraft and all that, because at that point I was like, this is not real. Like really, I was trying to do that when I was a teenager. I was like, this is not working, even though I put no work into that, but it's already not working, you know? And then seeing videos of like people who really claim to be witches and do real spell work, and it's like, what the fuck? Like this just blew my mind. And the first video I've ever seen about witchcraft was from Annie, actually. The Green Witch. That was the first video I stumbled upon looking up witches and what that really is. So that was really thanks to her, and it was really interesting, a lot of insight. So, and that's kind of how it started for me personally, and then just going down the rabbit hole, and then finding that school, and then joining that community. And this is really, I think this is where it really got the ball rolling for me. And now we're here.
Like I have, so, yeah. I don't know if you want to delve like a little deeper. Like, but do you think this is do you think this is a phase? Is this going to be like a lifelong practice for you? Do you think this is something that just thinking now, looking forward, do you think it's something like that may not be the case in the future, but is it something you think you'll continue with?
Oh yeah.
Or do you think you'll like reach a point where you're like, I've got what I needed out of that?
No, because I was thinking that, because I was really thinking like, oh my gosh, what if it's just another phase, because something about potentially neurodivergence with me. I'm not really diagnosed, but like I have heavy ADHD tendencies of starting projects and then never finish them, and then discard it and then start something new, like the new shiny object syndrome, right? So I was afraid that this would be just another phase. I think the difference is that I've always been fascinated with it, like since I was a child. So there's a phase of like where I didn't really fully believe in that, but I always came back to it. Like something about that always pulled me back. And now that I'm really intentionally practicing and going really deeper into that, again, actually practicing, not just reading about it, I'm just getting a lot out of it for myself that I cannot really discard at this point. Like I'm too deep into to be like, oh nope, you know what, we're done. We got everything we needed, and then I can move on with my life. I mean, I can see why I might be taking breaks for a period, but I know I will always come back to it, because that's just what happened with me throughout my entire life. I just always came back to it ultimately. So I don't know how it's with you guys, like Melissa, Kajal.
All right. Can I ask you one more question? You could say pass, but is so for this, is this secular or more spiritual, or do you kind of go back and forth between the two as far as the practice?
You open a can of worms.
I
like it.
I don't know if you could say pass.
No, it's fine, because like because this is another thing that, and I think this is probably where that void for me came into play, and like not believing really in anything, because I started super atheistic. Wait, is that a word? Atheist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was an atheist for a very long time, purely because I think I also was kind of rebellious against my mom, because like Meanwhile, I thought her Eastern esotericism was kind of cool because it was like it kind of gave an edge because I was the only child who was growing up in a household that had anything remotely Eastern. Being
Mm.
in Germany back in the 80s, 90s, that was not a huge thing. My dad, I guess we were a Shiva household, I assume, because we had Shiva and Kali posters and depictions of them in our house, in our living room. So, um, yeah, so that's just what I was growing up with. And um, that's what I was kind of that was just familiar to me. And then at some point, my mom got back into Christianity, so she got baptized as an adult. She goes to church. And all that fun stuff, which is fine. But it was like, I don't know, like being a little bratty teenager and then going, like being totally atheistic at this point, be like, this is all bullshit. And I was just constantly challenging her in conversations of like, how can you believe this? And then science says, like, um, so I personally thought it was bullshit that she was going back to Christianity when I felt like the Eastern esotericism was really cool, and like I really do love the Eastern philosophies and traditions, even though I'm not practicing them or anything like that. But I was more accepting of them, I would say, than Christianity at that point. And so that's where I started with. Then at some point, like in the 2010s, I adopted a more agnostic worldview where I was like, okay, I'm cool with that. I wouldn't call it God necessarily. I called it the universe.
Yeah.
Because I don't
The
know,
all.
it was, yeah, it's something, it's not personified for me. Like, I think I had a huge problem with the personification of deity, like in that depiction at least, of God. Like I just couldn't, because there was just too many paradoxes for me in the like Old Testament, and then I didn't even read that, but like it's so drastically different from the teachings of Jesus later on. So it was like, how can I reconcile these sides, those both very very extreme sides of God? This makes no sense to me. So completely discarded that, but I was more open to the idea and the concept of like, okay, there is something, a divine intelligence, I guess you can call it. I just didn't want to call it God because I'm also not religious and I didn't want to be part of any dogma. So, ah, agnosticism, I guess. And so I was comfortable with calling it the universe. And it was really interesting. I didn't even realize that until way later. I started to think about things of like, why should we call it God when the divine is in everything in and around us? So I think I adopted already a form of animism, and I didn't know that is what's called because I didn't have anybody to talk about this, and the internet was like not very, no, like it is nowadays. I still had to go to libraries for doing research because we didn't have a computer until like 2004 or something, and then we didn't really have internet access like we do nowadays. So I think I had something already in my head that made sense in form of like, yeah, animism. It made complete sense to me. I came to that conclusion myself. I just didn't know what it's called. So that was really
Hmm.
interesting. And that was like an aha moment for me later on where I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, it has a name. It has a tradition in a sense, or a belief system in that. And I did not know that what it's called. So yeah, so then slowly going into a spiritual path of like, not think spirits are real in a sense, but I don't know. I'm going back and forth on that. I can't really wrap my head around that, honestly. But yeah, took me probably 15 years to unravel that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because I was raised in Christianity as well, and for some people it saves their lives, and for some people it's a poison, and for me it was a poison, and so I just pushed spirituality as far away from me as possible. I wanted nothing to do with it for a really long time, And you'd go out in nature and they'd be like, "You feel that? That's God." I was like, "Well, I don't want anything to do with that either." And so like
Yeah.
like, so it's like, and I love hiking and being outside, but there was always this like, so it was just like science was like the easiest way for me to still kind
Mm-hmm.
of like connect and have, but without having it to be religious. And so when I first started out, it was very secular and like searching out, witchcraft and practices. And then, I've finally softened, and I would say it's a spiritual practice is what I would call it now for myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Same here.
Hmm.
Yeah. Did you also start more secular, Kajal? Or were you always
Um,
in the juju?
In other
it's
words,
it's
The
a
boo
weird
boo.
one. It's a weird one. Well, I feel like it's a weird one. So, I I didn't really grow up with religion. I didn't really grow up in a household that was very spiritual. But so my mom's from Trinidad, but um she's very, very much Indian genetics. So with that whole, after the slave trade with colonialism, they then brought Indians from India to work in the fields, in the cane fields and that. So she comes from that um bloodline basically. And so they obviously took their religion with them too. So she came from having very much a Hindu background, but she'd obviously gone through things that she'd gone through and kind of left that behind. She came to the UK. Well, I think my dad met her out there, and then they got married. They came back here because she also wanted a better life for herself. And uh, I grew up. I remember a period of time where we would like say prayers before bed, but like, dear God, uh, thanks or whatever. I don't really remember how they went, but we would like say a little prayer together in bed. And that didn't, I don't know how long that lasted for, but it got forgotten. And anything spiritual wasn't really at the forefront. I remember a period of time my mum was trying to get back into her yoga, and it didn't really last. My dad uh, comes from a Jewish background, but non-practicing. So it's like, Jewish genetics, but no Jewish religion. That was also left behind on his mother's side. She left it behind. She was like, I want to celebrate Christmas. Why can't we celebrate Christmas? So she grew up wanting to celebrate Christmas because she grew up Jewish, and seeing all the kids, all the families with their trees and the presents, and they just went through Christmas without any of that. So growing up, there was no religion, no kind of spiritual stuff at all, really. Um, I wasn't unaware of it, but it wasn't important to me. Uh, then there was a period of time in my life where I did look towards Christianity, but for literally all the wrong reasons. And I'm actually not sure I want to go into that right now. But all the wrong reasons. And it was to do with a person and approval from them. And that was a really blurry part of my life. But I had now a little bit more awareness of something. But then when I parted from that, I was like, fuck that shit. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna take drugs and have sex and whatever. I mean, I was having sex anyway. I mean, I just was like, right, I'm free. I don't have any ties. I can do what the fuck I want. Um, but when I hit about It was really funny because when I hit about 20, I was with someone who was into spirituality and yoga, and I wanted nothing to do with any of it because at the time I didn't have a good relationship with my mum, and my mum, during the periods of me being about 17 onwards, she was getting back into her spirituality. And because I didn't have a good relationship with her, I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, no, don't even. I'm not interested. Ew. And that boyfriend at the time really wanted me to get into it, and I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, quite a popular one, that I've heard about in like from people who are into spirituality. I read it, I got it, but it didn't really truly speak to me. But what's fun is I ended up reading it twice, because I returned to it a few years later, or maybe it was a year and a half later, which felt like long because you're in your early 20s, just time's different. But from that point of being about 20, I was definitely wanting more in my life from having like gone through quite a bit of trauma. And I'd always been one to contemplate kind of bigger things. Like, I remember being in nursery when I was little, standing in the garden, in the playground, looking out beyond the fence and just thinking, like, but what part of me is me? Is it my body? Is it my head? Like, what makes me me, and what makes the other people other people? Like, what is it that makes us us? Like, I'm like, I don't know, how old are you when you're in nursery? Like 3 or something, or 4? I don't know. I was like little, and that has always come back.
Your poor teachers.
My
Your poor.
To be honest, but the thing is, I don't remember always asking. I don't remember asking big questions. I probably did, but I don't really remember. My aunt will probably be able to tell me. My dad might, but I need him to actually talk to me and hold a conversation. Anyway, I'll chat with him at some point. But yeah, so I'm 20 years old, and I've like come out of something that's quite traumatic. I'm with this new guy. I'm I'm not even sure if I want to be in this relationship, and then I kind of go through my 20s knowing that there must be something more. Like, okay, boyfriends definitely had a part to play, but I was always there, like, knowing there was like something more to my life. There was obviously something that felt like it was missing, and I did investigate a little bit into spirituality, and the first thing I ended up getting into really was yoga. So it how did this start? When I went through the breakup with my second proper boyfriend. Boyfriend number 1 was into spirituality. I wasn't too interested. Boyfriend number 2 was a bit of a twat. And when I broke up with him finally, I was like, okay, I know what I don't want, but what do I want? And that was really when I went down this path of trying to discover who the fuck I am. Because I was feeling really lost. I had gone through 2 cycles, let's work with those 2 cycles, those 2 boyfriends of losing myself in that relationship and then becoming miserable. And then yeah, I'm sure many people can relate.
I get it. I totally relate.
And then I was like, I guess what really triggered the path was well, how can I actually enjoy sex? Because clearly I'm not enjoying it. And so going down that path, I found myself looking at sex educators. This is so funny. Looking at sex educators on YouTube, and then finding someone who like does tantra, and then wanting to be like in that realm of things, which I still do. And I've gone through waves of being like, nah, fuck it, I'm not interested, to actually I am. Why am I lying to myself? But you know, you go the path you go, and you build up to what is for you. And I didn't really know how to be part of, like, I didn't know where to start. It was just such a vast and expensive route, and I was like at the time I'm a student at university, like need I say more? And I ended up getting into yoga. I ended up really enjoying that, but I didn't maintain the practice. I was going in and out of it, and then ended up with boyfriend number 3, which started out really good for 6 months and then just became like the bane of my fucking life. And just, it was so miserable. We were just so not right for each other, and it was just, ugh. It dragged on. It got to a point where it was like flogging a dead horse, and that went into like, I basically graduated from university, and that was the middle point of the entire relationship of us, and then went into a pandemic. So I graduated in 2019, and I'd already started university a couple of years late because I was figuring out what the fuck. Slipped into depression, slap bang into a pandemic, and it was horrendous. And I ended up practicing a lot of yoga and actually thinking I wanted to become a yoga teacher. And I was actually really ill in the pandemic with like stress, like chronic stress, really bad depression, really bad anxiety, wanting to uphold a spiritual practice. But this is where like there's a fine line where like if you don't have the right support around you, it can also be unhelpful. And I ended up dropping my practice for a long time, wanting to get back into like spiritual practice, and just feeling so lost with it. I started meditating as well in the pandemic, and again just kind of lost the flow of my practice, and didn't really understand moving with the flow of life. It's really taken me up until now, and I still struggle with that. Well, then after I broke up with that boyfriend, I met my lovely boyfriend, who is currently my partner, and just the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Shout out to Zach.
Because we've been together for fucking ages now, and he supported me through so much of it, and literally watched me on my journey. So where the real practice started was, so in 2021 December, lost my grandmother, and then in 2022, while I was still working at the deli, on my birthday, my boss bought me a book called Transcendental, the one, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, and basically I think that changed my life, because it doesn't tell you how to practice. It talks about transcendental meditation, what it is, and it talks about studies that have been done on like control groups and excuse me, transcendental meditation groups. And there are quite a few studies about the difference in how the physiology and the mental well-being of both groups changed or didn't change. So in pretty much every study, the control group did not improve, but the transcendental meditation group did show positive changes. It's a great book. It was really inspiring, and so I looked up like my local transcendental meditation teacher, And I had, funnily enough, seen the adverts for that meditation on Instagram like come up a few times. Um, and I went and I learnt because I had been suffering from burnout for quite a long time. At that point, what that was 2023. So 2023 November, I went and learned Transcendental meditation, which was after I'd learned about witchcraft. So I'm learning about witchcraft. I finally read the book on transcendence, which I'd received the year before. Read the book, and I'm like, well, I want to feel like I'm on holiday for 20 minutes twice a day. That kind of sold it to me. But they were talking about anxiety, they talked about depression, and then there was other discussions about like hypertension, ADHD, and other heart issues that the meditation group showed improvements in all of those groups with all the people who suffered from those issues. And so I went and I learnt. And then shortly after that that was November 2023. And then that was the point where I was like, well, if I don't invest in myself, in the things that I would like to invest in, what am I going to do? Sit on the money and then spend it on food and never even go on holiday because, you know, mindset stuff, right? And then I entered 2024. I hear it about this, program that's running and the community that comes with it, but I'm mostly interested in the program, and I decide to invest my money and join, and here we are. So that's my my orange story. That's my orange story.
Your orange story.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So the theme I'm seeing, it's like a year of like pre and then a year of like on YouTube and podcasts and beginner books, and then like
Do it.
this, because we're all about in coming up on our third
Yeah.
year is like where we're like the practice we're
Yeah.
in now we kind of found. So it's like took 3 years to kind of get settled into what we're doing.
Yeah, that sounds about
Yeah.
right.
If we're ever settled.
If we're ever settled, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's 100% a spiritual practice for me, and I don't think I'll ever leave it because I just feel like, well, what would I be without it? Especially because I came from, when I started the Transcendental meditation, I was also in a place where I was like, I need something to help me. I need something more. And I've been in therapy for a long time, but like, that supports you up until a certain point. And don't get me wrong, like therapy is great. If you have the privilege to be able to have therapy, get therapy. If you need the help, get the help. It helped me along the way of also putting things into perspective, getting out of my own head, having someone to safeguard me when I was not in the soundest of mind, and even up until this day, I find it helpful when I'm getting a little overwhelmed with all of the things that I find inspiring related to spiritual practice, along with the struggle I can come up against, and then feeling like I need to do this and I need to do that and I got to do this and because I can just be that kind of person, and then have my therapist is like, but can we just take a step back and just check this real quick. So yeah, that's in a nutshell me.
So okay, well,
Let's wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, wrapping it up.
We did it.
So the paths
Fun.
started really wide, and they started getting narrower and narrower and narrower. So some of the resources that helped me kind of in these early stages. So I mentioned the Waking Up app, but that introduced me to people like William Irvine, and Stoicism, and I always mess up her name, Samanari Jayasara. She's really great, Buddhist teacher. And then some of the YouTubes were Witches Cookery, Thorn Mooney, the Blade and Broom, and actually the Story Crow. So when I looked into Beltane, I found the Story Crow that talks a lot about these Anglo-Saxon folklore. And so a lot of my introduction to this was through folklore, which is it's a fun place to
It
start.
is.
Like stories are
Yeah.
fun. Some of my favorite podcasts still are Spirit Box, Lilith Left Hand, Real Witches of the End Time, Southern Bramble, and Witch Hazel were some of the resources
Wait,
that
is
were
Southern
most
Bramble with
valuable to me in those early.
Marshall? Is that him? Yeah, I like Marshall too.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
We'll have everything linked down below that we've discussed in terms of resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, mine are. They're gonna overlap because like Witch's Cookery is amazing.
Right.
Bex is awesome because it just ties back to my German.
Oh, good.
I mean, my German origins. I mean, obviously Bavaria, southern Germany. I feel like they are actually more magical, even though it's Bavaria, but whatever. Yeah, and she's awesome because she has approached that with a secular perspective, not any type of religion or spirit approaches, because I didn't start with spirits at all, and so I really found her channel so accessible in terms of folklore and folk witchery, and just again so German specific as well, which I really loved. But yeah, she's one of the few channels that does not do the spirit stuff or any type of religious aspects to that, which is really cool. It's very hard to find those. So I second that. Annie, because again, she's like the first channel that I started, and she has such cozy, I think the Green Witch, yeah. She has such cozy videos. Access to herbalism, which was a big thing for me back then at least. It was super interesting to just find out more about the herbalism, her traditions and ways how she approaches witchcraft. More on that herbalism side. Then obviously Witch of Wonderlust. I mean, do I have to say more? If you don't know any of these channels, where have you been? But also
now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, honestly, it's such amazing, accessible, and again, free material online. So just overall awesome. And then the Norse Witch for me, because they are again from Germany, but also more with the roots in Norse mythology and Norse traditions, which is really cool. Very interesting. So they're very knowledgeable, like all around that stuff for sure. And then, oh my gosh, who else? Frankie was really interesting because Frankie is chaotic witch hunt. A, they're funny. B, I really like their vibe. And B, very interesting, wonderful approach to folk Catholicism. Oh my gosh, folk witchcraft and Catholicism. I can't speak today. And just seeing like the Italian American folk witchcraft practices, which is really interesting because I've never seen that I don't see that perspective. I didn't grow up with that, so that was really cool to see that there are Catholic witches. You know. Gosh, who else? There's probably like so many that I cannot think of right now. If I can find more, I will definitely add them to the links and resources below for sure.
Obviously, that the Transcendental Meditation, Transcendence by Dr. Norman E. Rosenthal, which should be linked, will be linked below, and also is in the last episode. But I didn't actually start out with that. I started out reading Sacred Sex by Gabriella Herstick, which I also mentioned in the last episode. It's so funny. I'm going to mention this just because it's funny. One of the first books I read, but I didn't do any of the exercises, but I was quite inspired by, was Psychic Witch by Matt Oren. Millicent knows what's up. And then when I did finally sit down to work with that book, we didn't get on. It didn't work out between us. And maybe it'll work out sometime in the future. Maybe I just wasn't ready for it, but it was a ball ache, and I was like resisting putting it down because I had committed to the process, and then I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. So I know it's worked for many, didn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that it won't work for some of you who are watching. So it is a highly recommended book by quite a few practitioners out there, just not for me, at least not in this phase of my life right now. Witch of Wonderlust was definitely, she was the first practitioner I found on YouTube. And I was like, this one knows what's up. Then it was Chaotic Witch Hunt. And to be honest, I think they were the two like witchy ones that I really stuck with. I didn't really venture out too much because it just got a bit overwhelming for me. Prior to that, what got me interested in like Tantra was Layla Martin. One day I will do her coaching certification, maybe at some point in my life when I'm actually ready for it, because it's like just a whole thing. But she has a whole load of like, she does have like little mini courses and stuff, and a whole backlog of YouTube information. And I know loads of people know Yoga with Adriene, but if you don't, Yoga with Adriene was the teacher on YouTube that I followed and did yoga alongside throughout the pandemic, and I've been slowly returning to her videos. Yeah,
same, but I did that years before, and then she was even more important during the pandemic.
yeah. I because I stopped for ages, but I've recently been slowly, like, I've done one video, but I want to actually get back into my yoga, which feels wild. I was like, I don't even know if I'll get back into it, and I've had a bit of a calling. Yoga with Adriene.
Yoga with Tim. I did yoga with Tim. If you did yoga with Adriene, I would suggest also checking out yoga with Tim.
So yoga with Tim down there. Any other books? I read Year of the Witch. I think it's up there on the shelf. Year of the Witch, which talks about like all the witch's wheel, but with just a little bit of a different perspective, kind of making the witch's wheel your own, because there are people who live in the southern hemisphere and there are people who live in tropical places. So it's a good one for kind of looking at the witchy holidays, which I don't really follow at all, but it's nice to know. I also read Gabriella Herstick's Bewitching the Elements. That was really nice on kind of learning a bit more about the elements and crystals, and some other bits. I read another one of hers. It was like I think one of the early ones that I lent to my friend, but I can't think of it. So I will link that down. I will put the resource down there below because I can't think of it now. Chaotic Witch Hunt's Spell for Change. Yeah, Frankie's spell. Yeah, I have that. That was really useful. I think that's all of the main books that I've read. I've got Urban Tantra by Barbara Krellis, but I've not really done a lot with it. Obviously, I'm just not ready. So that would be more Tantra based. Another one that I have that I've not really got into, but I've kind of started because it's very exercise heavy. I can find those books quite difficult. But Igniting Intimacy by I'll put their name below. Igniting Intimacies, a really interesting one, a really good one for a lot of kind of creating intimacy with yourself. I can't think of any others at the moment. Those are the main ones that kind of are part of the getting to this point. Yeah.
No, that's a good list.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good list because if anyone is like me, they're just going to overwhelm themselves sooner or later anyway. So these are perfect starting points.
I feel like
You'll
that's
figure out the
right
rest.
passage. Like you kind of got to go. I think a lot of people, especially starting out a little bit later, when you have such an abundance of information, you go through the overwhelmed. You go through, I just don't know if I can do it, and then you just find you just slowly have to find what works.
Mm.
You have to put blinders on and kind of like limit the flow just so you can focus
and then also go through this is not working, fuck that off, what else can I try that might work, and then give that a go. It's just a lot of trial and error. Our lovely little tarot group, look what it's become. A mad conversation on the internet. If you got this far, thank you for watching. We are going to continue bringing out an episode every single month. If you got anything out of this that has helped you, reassured you, been useful for you, I am grateful. And we hope to see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Cool! We did it! Number 2! I think we should keep that in.
Zach has so much to edit out. I apologize in advance.